Hi and welcome. My name is Stacia, and in today's story session, I'd like to share some forgiveness stories and forgiveness exercises that have helped me on my journey. So, a couple of years ago, I was in my friend's tea shop and I found a Kuan Yin oracle deck. And in the oracle deck, there was a card that the exercise was to write a letter from your highest version of yourself, your highest self, forgiving past versions of yourself. And this was a really beautiful exercise for me. And I had done something similar in the past and done different, forgiveness exercises and forgiveness inner work. But with the Kuan Yin Oracle deck, it was really beautiful, and the energy in the card and everything that the card had shared with me kind of set the stage and the energy to move forward with that exercise. And I was briefly reviewing that letter that I had written to myself. This was in 2025, actually, so a year ago, sorry. And it was really beautiful, and I had a lot of compassion. And in it, I wasn't super specific about specific times. It was more of like a blanket forgiveness. And so those of you that have been watching my channel, or those of you that know me, know that I worked in the adult industry for like 11 years. And during that time, I had a lot of shame patterns, and I was really self-conscious, and I had a lot of things going on. So I didn't really want to share with the outside world what I was doing because I had a lot of shame attached to that profession. Especially back then, working in the sex industry was really frowned upon. And I'm not saying that it's not now, but there's a lot more exposure with OnlyFans and things like that. There's more acceptance for it. And I'm not here to have a judgment or to pick a side about whether or not or weighing the moralities of being a sex worker or an OnlyFans girl or a stripper. That's not what this video is about. This video is about having inner forgiveness for yourself and exercises and practices that I've used to help facilitate that. And in turn, that's created more compassion, more self-love for myself, right? So some of the things that I've had to do with my inner forgiveness journey is to, kind of hone in on some of those specific times or specific situations and things like that. And really, for me, it was waking up to the fact that I really was just doing the best that I could, with the consciousness and the awareness that I had at that time. That's just what it was, and beating myself up all the time and judging myself and hating myself and shaming myself was also a deeper pattern, something that was a conditional signature from my childhood as well. Lack of love, self-love, feeling worthy, being seen or wanting to be seen, right? So throughout this experience for me and where I'm currently at with my self-forgiveness, or kind of how I'm recognizing that, is appreciating the version of myself that I had to be throughout different points in my life to survive. The girl who first started working at a strip club and, developed a drinking habit and was doing drugs and whatever, I was really using those as tools to help me get through a difficult time. And it wasn't just the work environment itself, there's also traumas and things that I just didn't have the capacity, and my mental health and emotional health and spiritual health that I didn't have the capacity to hold space for, nor did I have the know-how or support. So I really was just like, I really am, recognizing that who I was and the things that I've done have really paved the way for me today. The girl that I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, made way, was able to push forward and be strong enough to bring me to who I am and where I am today. And recognizing that and having a moment to say, wow, that's amazing. Even though that road wasn't perfect, even though my actions weren't always the best, maybe my character wasn't always the best, or my integrity or my morals and things like that, but I'm able to recognize that, she did what she needed to do, and I can forgive myself for that, and I can appreciate that. Um, and also recognizing that I'm not perfect, right? So this is part of my journey, and cultivating self-love. And one of the things that in the beginning, and I learned this from Dr. David R. Hawkins, and in his book Letting Go, which is the only book I've been able to finish reading from front to cover, right? Still been working through Power versus Force for like ages now. It's a tough read. But in that book, Letting Go, Dr. Hawkins, in one of the exercises, he has somebody, the story of somebody who loses a job and everything like that. And, in order to build that kind of like that muscle or that awareness or that threshold or ability of letting go, it's just letting go of like the stapler in the office, letting go of the desk, letting go of the computer. So that was really pivotal for me, especially even looking at it from a forgiveness standpoint, not just letting go, but that is part of it, right? Letting go of these negative emotions or these judgments that we have on ourselves. And then, when you further and expand that exercise to other people in your life, right? But here with ourselves, letting go and forgiving myself little by little. Like, what was I able to first palate in my self-forgiveness? Like, what could I, have the threshold? Where was I at? What was my set point? What was my capacity to have self-love and self-forgiveness? What could I look at? And over time with this practice, it expands and you're able to go deeper and deeper, or I was, at least. I don't know about you and your story, right? Because I don't. So for me, that's kind of how it was. It was just little by little. And as I was able to cultivate more love, more forgiveness, more compassion for myself, and increase my awareness, the ability for that exercise was able to grow. And I was able to create more love, right? So it's just kind of working on the little things that you can forgive yourself for. It's like forgiving myself for all the years that I drank and I was really hard on my body, and sometimes it's more specific than that, right? And then let's go into another exercise. And I learned this exercise from Erin Dowdy. It's called Ho'oponopono. And this is kind of like has Hawaiian roots. I don't know too much of the background story of it, but I learned this at one of his events back in 2023. And this was a really cool practice for me, and it was more specific as I was able to move back into my timeline at different parts of my existence and my experience and practice this exercise. And I think it's like, I don't have it in the correct order, so forgive me, or if I do, that's great, right? Like, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you. So hurting people or upsetting people or like family or friends, or maybe I said something out of turn, or I was having a bad day and I took it out on somebody else. Taking a moment to go inwards and call forth that moment to my awareness, like and submerge myself back in there and practice that kind of mantra, right? So it's like saying it, feeling it, cultivating the emotions of it, feeling it, resonating with it, aligning with it, and practicing the please forgive me with sincerity. I'm sorry, thank you, I love you. And this is a really cool exercise, and I really I use that off and on. And one of the things that I've heard teachers say, just like forgive, and at certain points of my journey, because I had experienced so much childhood abuse and a lot of pain and suffering at an early age, that as I began to awaken to that and move through that, accepting and stepping into like the anger and the rage was, that was even difficult for me. But also, trying to force yourself to forgive these people in your life when you're not ready to, is really, for me, it was really counterproductive, right? And I think that, I just want to share that because I think, especially with Ho'oponopono, there's different teachers that really promote, you practice saying that to your abuser as one of the exercises, or the person who did you wrong. Maybe like, here's a simple one, like somebody cut you off on the highway, you're all angry and, road rage, right? So the exercise, one of the ways that people also use that exercise is to say the mantra, like, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you, to the person who, cut you off and whatever. And so yeah, my biggest thing with that is, I think that depending on where you are in your journey, with that, if there is not sincerity and you're uncomfortable and you're trying to push yourself into that, then perhaps that's not an ideal time to start working with that exercise in that way. And that's okay. And I'm also not trying to say that, you don't have to forgive or whatever. There's just different parts of our journey, and on my experience, in my journey, in my experience, these shifts happen over time with deeper practice. And as I have the capacity and the awareness to forgive myself and forgive others, that's when I start with those practices. And not that, if there's going to be some resistance, right? There was for me, but once I am able to palate that, and authentically and with sincerity, and move through that, that's when it's a good time to start, for me, working with those exercises. But yeah, so, and I thought today might be a good time to also maybe practice a little exercise together. So this will just be a couple of minutes. And if this is something you're interested in and feel called to do, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes. And we're going to take a couple of deep breaths. I'd like to invite you to sigh if that helps you to relax. Good. We're just going to take a moment to ground ourselves. Just imagine our light body shooting into the earth. I like to envision electricity like roots to a tree, moving through my tailbone, through my feet, just diving into the earth and getting grounded. Good. Let's bring our awareness to our body, noticing if there's any tension in the body. Maybe you need to stretch a little bit. Beautiful. And bring our awareness behind our eyes. Good. Move down to our throat. Good. Our chest, our stomach, our limbs. Good. Let's take a moment and ask the soul or subconscious or the body, whoever you feel like calling out to, let's take a moment and ask this part of ourselves. Is there anything that's ready to be forgiven? I'd like to call forth something within myself that needs to be seen. Perhaps a version of myself, a moment in time. Perhaps this comes as a memory, a picture, a feeling. Just allow the first thing that comes to mind to come to mind. Good. Take a deep breath. Just allow yourself to ground this moment, visualizing it connecting deep into the earth. Beautiful. So how can can we look at ourselves at this moment in time through the eyes of compassion? How were we strong? What is it we needed to do? What was our level of awareness? Beautiful. What was our capacity to hold emotion at this time? Good. Were we able to hold vulnerability? Beautiful. Just knowing that right now your awareness has grown, your consciousness has grown. This past version of yourself did the best that they could. This past version of yourself moved you through the waters of life, of challenges against the currents, just doing the best that they knew how. Good. Let's take a moment and thank ourselves, this version of ourselves that got us to where we are today. This version of ourselves that held all of that weight, all of that emotion, recognizing how strong we are. Good. Beautiful. Allowing our heart space to open, inviting this version of ourselves in. Perhaps we have a message for ourselves. Thank you. I love you. You are strong. I understand. It's okay. Beautiful. Allow yourself to take a couple of breaths. Good. Bringing our awareness to the body, noticing how we feel energetically, being aware of any lightness, any shifts. Good. Knowing that we can connect with ourselves across all timelines, across all possibilities, and go through this exercise. Beautiful. Knowing that we are worthy, we are loved. Beautiful. Good. When you're ready, I'd like to invite you to open your eyes. So yeah, it's a nice little exercise, and you can practice it little by little. For me, there's times and seasons and cycles where I go in and I facilitate this healing work with myself, or inner child work, and it's good to do that for a cycle and then take a break, and just being gentle with myself, being kind to ourselves. That's it's a good practice, right? So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this serves you well on your journey.